Hello, you're listening to Ready, Set, Go Real Estate Investing Podcast, presented by Brandon Elliott. This show will be going over all aspects of real estate investing and is intended to educate, motivate, and prepare you to take action on your first or next real estate investment. For more information, please visit BrandonElliottInvestments.com. Thank you for listening and enjoy.
Welcome back, everyone, to Ready, Set, Go Real Estate Investing Podcast. I am your host, Mr. Brandon Elliott. I am so excited today. I'm usually excited for these podcast episodes, let's be honest. But this one in particular, I'm just super thankful for. It's a brother from our Credit Council Elite, one of the members, but also somebody in our backyard, San Diego. And really just like his story is very impactful, why he jumped into real estate, what he's up to today, starting off more on the wholesaler and realtor side, and really just transitioning over the last few years into like excessive type of investing that is just like compounding this success, helping out so many more people in return, and obviously blessing his pockets, which is good. So really just excited to have Jonny on here today. But Jonny, what is up, man? How are you, bro?
Dude, I'm doing great, man. Got in the gym this morning, got a good pump going on.
I love it. We just started the 75 hard challenge again, and man, like a couple days into it, and I'm just like, oh, geez, what a struggle every time.
What day did you get to before? Did you have to start over?
No, I finished last time, but then a month after I gained all the weight back and just lost those routines. So we're jumping back into it for true success this time, and keeping weight off and keeping the good routines going.
Yeah.
But I love it, man. So for anybody out there that doesn't know exactly who Jonny Phillips is and like where your whole background and what you're up to, do you mind just sharing a little bit more details about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So right now, 29 years old, and my wife and I, we recently moved to La Mesa, California, and we moved into a house that was originally going to flip. We have a baby girl, our daughter. She's 16 or almost 16 months old now. And that's a whole nother, I guess that's a big fuel in my fire too, is like her with how she came into the world. But so we've lived in San Diego for, May 2017. So
okay.
Was that four and a half years ago?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So where were you from originally?
Born and raised in Ohio.
Okay.
Like town of 900 people. I graduated from public school with 43 kids in my class. And ironically, my best friend, we grew up together from birth, and he actually lives out here in San Diego too. We're from the same small town, and we met kind of through our wives in a way where they were best friends. And so it's fun living life, with someone from your hometown.
Yeah. 100%.
All the way out here. Yeah.
So you moved out here, and then what did that look like? Why'd you move out here in the first place? Just to get away from Ohio?
Well, we actually we're in Rochester, New York before. So we were in Rochester, New York for 5 years from 2012 to 2017. And, it's probably one of the least sunny places in the country and snowy. And my wife just had pretty rough seasonal depression.
Yeah.
And she was like, babe, let's go on vacation to San Diego. And I was like, why? Like, what's the point? Like, and she's like, it's fun. She grew up in Arizona, so she is familiar with out here.
She knows about San Diego then. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, I guess, okay, let's go on vacation. And then while we were planning the vacation, she's like, hey, why don't you think about what if we moved there? I was like, no, like it's expensive. There's high taxes, there's earthquakes, and there's fires. Like that's an illogical decision.
Yeah. Like, no.
Yeah. And so we went out here March 2015 for the first time. We stayed at an Airbnb in North Park, and I went on a run. So I was a big cross country runner back in high school. And so I watched the Foot Locker National Cross Country Championships every year, and they're held at Balboa Park.
Yeah.
And I was running, And I was like, oh my God, I'm on the course. Like I watched it on TV every year and I was like, oh my God, I'm running where they run. And I went up into, hey, Florida Canyon, right down the street from
Oh,
here.
yeah. One of my properties. Yeah.
Yeah. But I went on the trails on Florida Canyon and I like was at the top and I was just like, oh my God, what is this? Like, this is crazy here.
Next level, right?
Yeah. I just like said like gratitude prayers. I was like, man, this is so amazing. It's so beautiful. Thank you, for me being able to experience this beauty. And I went back. And by the way, I was kind of pretty out of shape at the time. And I was gone for like an hour and a half. So my wife was like pretty concerned. Yeah. And I came back and I was like, oh, I love it here. Like, this is amazing. And so I was like, kind of like, okay, I get the vibe here. And then then later that year, we had, a decent amount of credit card debt and just some other like financial things where we felt pretty like binded. And it was winter time and my wife was like, what do we have to do to move to San Diego? Yeah. And I was like, well, let's get our finances together and then let's go. So 2016, we paid off all of our consumer debt. And then like the first part of 2017, we were just piling up money. Oh, I think we paid off our debt September 2016, a little less than a year. And then started saving and then moved in May 2017, literally just packed everything we owned in our Honda Pilot with our dog. Like we sold everything. We had a massive garage sale and visited family, different parts of the country. And yeah. And I was in car sales before. So I was in car sales in New York and
which is a great industry to really get your sales experience and so much valuable knowledge there.
Yeah. I felt like that really elevated me to be like a real professional, because you're handling, an intimate financial decision with someone. You're helping them kind of get over that.
And with properties, it's like usually the biggest decision of somebody's life, So it's a big financial obligation or burden if you don't position it right,
Yeah, I was just ready to move up asset classes, just from automobiles to houses.
So you came out here and then basically just started, what was your first job and what did that look like? Because now you're doing a bunch of real estate and super motivational.
How I got started here was like crazy. So I was like, I don't really want to do car sales anymore. So we came out for a recon visit like 2 months prior to secure housing for us and to have like job interviews. So my wife was a hairstylist at the time and I was like kind of just interviewing for sales or whatever. And so I was like, solar sounds good. They pay. I didn't really understand all it entailed, but they're like, yeah, $20 an hour and, plus commissions. I was like, all right, sweet. And so I got here, I had my first day and I probably sound pretty egotistical when I say this, but it's unfortunately the truth. I walked in there and I was like, oh my God, I'm the smartest person in this room. Yeah. Like, that's not good. Like
that's not good. You want to be in the opposite room.
I want to be at the bottom, to learn and elevate. And so I remember it was my third day and they paired me up with these two like 19-year-old kids who literally rode tandem on a motorcycle together because that was the only vehicle they owned between the two of them. And they're like, all right, you're going to meet them in this neighborhood and canvas. And I'm like, I'm just waiting for like an hour. And I'm like, I'm waiting on these 19-year-old kids. This is ridiculous. So I just called my wife and I was like, hey, like, I'm just going to quit. Like this is, and so I remember I was in a Home Depot parking lot. I still go to that Home Depot and I look at that spot because I remember I was like, man, I quit after 3 days. I'd never done that before in my life. And thankfully I had the car experience to back me up to where I just called the dealership and I was in an interview the next day and they brought me on. And so I was with them and started off great, was in top 25% of sales guys right away. And I was like, man, let me see if I can be number one. Let me just prove it to myself. And so I went number one 2 months in a row in the whole store. I was like depressed. Like,
really?
Going in at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
And
you're
and then
overworking
leaving,
yourself. Yeah.
I would leave at like 11 p.m. to midnight some nights. And I just remember it was October of 2017. And so August and September, I was number one. And then October came, I was walking out my bedroom door and I remember saying a prayer. I was like, God, just let my wife release me from this job because, we're settling into a new city, all the way across the country. And I wanted to make sure that we had good financial footing.
Yeah.
And she asked me as I was passing the bathroom, she's like, hey, how many cars have you sold this month? And it was the middle of the month. So normally I'd have like, 10 to 12 sold already. Mm-hmm. And I was like, 2. And she was like, oh. I was like, yep. And then that was kind of it. And I went to work and she called me right after I got there. And this is crazy. She's like, hey, I think you need to quit.
Yeah.
And I was like,
yes, really? I do.
Yeah, like I do need to quit. So, we talked for about an hour and just kind of like game plan of like, okay, how are we going to, go through this next season?
Having a good woman by your side, fellas, this is important.
Yeah. So I went up to HR and I, just signed a resignation letter and I was gone.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, holy crap. And I'm like applying everywhere. Like if you know ZipRecruiter, that website. So they have like one click apply.
Yeah.
So you have your resume on ZipRecruiter and then you hit one click apply to like a bunch of, dude, I was applying to like Chick-fil-A. I was like, I want to be a franchisor, or franchisee at some point. Yeah. Like I want to own a business. And I did interviews at a few different places, even interviewed at Chick-fil-A and, for a manager position. I was like, man, they invited me back. A few places invited me back. And I was like, man, I just want my next place to like be something that I'm actually building towards. And I previously in New York had also been working as a tech support, phone support. And so I had an interview with a job for that and interview went great. Loved the people. I was like, yeah, I know how to do this. It's in an existing skill set. And I just wanted relief. Part of my soul wanted relief from like just work having no limits before. Yeah. And I was like, man, it's 9 to 5, had a 401k, PTO. And the salary was like, it was like $40K a year. I was like, we could pay our bills. Like, I'll be content.
Yeah.
And I walked out of that interview and I prayed a very unique, like, I had never prayed like this before. I was like, God, if this isn't what you have for me, please don't give it to me because I'm going to say yes. I already knew what I was going to say. I was going to accept the job if they gave it to me.
And settle.
Yeah. And they emailed me a week later and said, we chose another candidate.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was still kind of disappointed. I was like, okay, there has to be something better. Then the next day I get a phone call from this recruiter from a real estate company. And I was like, they're like, you applied. I was like, I did. Like I just hit so many one-click applies. It was like, I was trying to like not be dismissive. I was like, yeah, could you just remind me what this position is for? She's like, that's for like, real estate acquisitions position. I was like, oh yeah. Like, she's like, are you interested? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. She's like, okay, let me run you through, some of the details. And, she's like, okay, well, your average first year associate makes like $60K a year. I was like, okay, that's cool. She's like, yeah, by year 2 or 3, a lot of our senior associates are making $200,000 to $300,000 a year. And I was like, what? Like, Are you serious? And she's like, would you be interested in interviewing for this? I was like, yes.
Sign me up. Yeah.
Yeah. And I went in, he offered me the job, but I had to get my real estate license. Okay. So it meant I couldn't start until I got it, which was like a 3 to 4 month process. And during that time, it was kind of a really good just resetting time for me. Like I drove for Uber and Lyft, and my wife was still working, but I just felt like a lot of purpose in what I was getting ready for.
Yeah.
And so then by the time I started in February of 2018, I was ready to go. I did my first deal 5 weeks into the job, and I kind of had that huge high. It was like, holy shit, like I just sold a house. Like, like this is crazy. They used to do like coin flips and card draws, like, cause they didn't do bidding wars. And so I literally like sold my first real estate deal on a coin flip.
Yeah.
And, and I hit such a high. It was like, my sales activities kind of went down, and I was like, oh, like, understanding, cause the sales cycle in cars is like 24 hours, maybe, 3 days if they come back. But in real estate, it's like 60 to 90 days, typically, like the pay cycle.
Yep.
And so I was like, okay, what I do today is really going to yield results in 60 to 90 days. And so I really, after having that dip after that first sale, I was like, okay, all right. And then, I became one of the top guys in the office. And after like 2 years of working there, I just realized, I was like, I want to go on my own. Like there's a quote, is like, if your spirit has left the building, you should take your body with it.
Yeah, that's so good.
If you're just like, and I was checked out for a bit. I was like, man, like I just, there was a few different things, but I was like ready to just move on. And then I quit last day of January 31st, 2020.
Yeah.
Right. Kind of, none of us really knew COVID was going to happen.
Sure.
Then that I was just trying to like figure out like, what am I doing? Like, am I going to be a realtor? Am I going to be like, an investor? And I definitely found a little bit of traction with like just being a realtor at first, helping friends buy houses and, investors sell houses. And
I'm sure at that point you were getting a lot of motivation though, by seeing, okay, well, what all these investors are doing right here, it can be pretty profitable.
Yeah. Because one of the, things that was discouraged at that company was like really listening to the investors. We would acquire deals and then we would wholesale them to these investors.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, we should trust us, not them, because they're going to, try to beat us down or whatever. But I always, I'm like, dude, I'm walking into this guy's like $4 million house with ocean views. I'm going to listen to what he has to say.
Yeah. 100%.
And I feel like that really helped me, because I would always check in on projects, like what hurdles are you running into? Why did this project take so long? What roadblocks happened?
Yeah.
What went well? What were different things? And so I kind of had that just feedback loop, for 2 years before I really jumped in and out on my own. And then for like, because we got shut down, the big shutdown happened March 2020. And it was like, I remember journaling and I said, I still have it saved, but I remember I was just trying to like figure out what I was building, on my own. I said bye to them, and my, hair salons got shut down. If you remember those 2 weeks, like real estate wasn't even like considered essential. And so it was like, man, like I have no, like, I don't have any passive income streams. I don't have like
pressure's on at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, we have all these bills.
Yeah.
I just remember, and my wife was pregnant too.
Yep.
So she was like 3 months pregnant. And I was like, man, I will never let this happen to my family ever again.
Yep.
Like the situation that we're in, it's never going to happen to us ever again. And, from there, I started just working underground. We still did stuff and got some transactions going.
So as far as real estate goes, like what was that first deal for you and how many deals have you done at this point? the strategy that you're utilizing is mostly either fix and flip, right? Or are you doing buy and holds as well?
Eventually, I will. My first deal was, I had been so close. I'd negotiated so many deals for that company. Yeah. And I remember I just talked myself out of deals. Yeah. And I was like, I had them negotiated so well. And one in particular, I lost, and I had it negotiated at $470,000 purchase price. And the ARV was like, I think 670 at the time. And then there was some tenants, and this was like the height of tenant, like, we didn't know like what was going on. And it was such a good deal because there's such a small house, easy rehab. And I said, I just got scared. The person behind me paid $480 for it. They paid more than me. Sure. And they paid $5,000 cash for keys. Yep. Got them out, wholesaled it for $537, made like $50K. Yep. And then that flipper sold it for $715. Yeah. And
you're just looking at the numbers like, damn it.
Yeah. Yeah. And my wife, again, she just called me out. She's like, you do that a lot. Yeah. Like you were so good at analyzing and underwriting, and you get to this like decision point and you get scared. And I was like, you know what?
Well, how many, it's not just you, it's like how many brand new investors get too analytical on it and do the same thing, they don't know the numbers that well. So then they try, doing like 50% of what it's worth or something, like crazy numbers that like, if you take a little bit more risk, especially in the market that we're blessed to be in, it can usually pan out better than what you normally anticipate.
Yeah. Yeah. And literally so that I think that was September. In October, I bought 2 deals. Yeah. And the first deal I bought was a condo with foundation issues. Like the unit below removed a structural support beam. So, I mean, talk about just diving in head first to my first flip. And that deal ended up making, I think, $60K.
Let's go.
And so I was like, all right.
All right, I like this real estate stuff.
I was like,
I can mess with it. How long did that project take? And how did you get that deal?
I got it from a wholesaler.
Okay.
And
relationships, Yeah,
which to this day is still how I get all of my deals.
Same here, 100%. I'm not getting it off the market. It's pocket listings from wholesalers or real estate agents that are about to list it. Yep.
Because, if you think about it, it's a sales force, like who are already, looking or, attracting deals that I want. Yep. And, sure, maybe that they're a little thinner than you could get direct to seller, but the cost per acquisition is so low. It's so minimal.
Out here in San Diego, from what I've heard, I'm not a wholesaler, so I can't, attest to this. But from my understanding, a lot of the wholesalers are paying anywhere from like $7,500 to like $10,000 roughly.
Yeah.
To actually to acquire these deals. Me personally, I'm above and beyond okay with giving $40,000, $50,000 to these individuals as long as the numbers still work out for me. I'm cool with it because I don't need to do anything. They send me the list. I go check it out. Good to go. Cool. Like, that's how I prefer. But, everybody teach his own, right?
I think it's what people have to understand is marketing is its own business.
It is.
And so understanding like what business you're really in.
Yes.
And I'm not a marketer like that type. And so it's like, I don't even pressure myself. Sometimes we feel the FOMO. Where you're like, dude, this guy got a fat deal.
Yeah.
And
I've been there. Yeah.
Some of these big dog investors are putting out like 50, 60, 70K a month in marketing.
Yeah.
And, that's just.
And sometimes it doesn't pay out for 6 months to a year, Yeah. So, and constant follow up. So the systems in place, being a wholesaler, it's crucial.
Yeah. I bought a deal in January and the wholesaler made $70,000.
Yeah.
And I was like, sweet, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, good on you. I watched his Instagram. He went and bought like an Audi after that. I'm like, oh, that's great. Like that, that.
He should have bought an investment property himself, but so then it pays for it. But,
Well, it'll motivate him to give me more deals so he can make more money then.
That's right. That's true. I love that.
Yeah.
So any struggles on that first deal?
Yes. So the contractor, literally all I did was just a verbal SOW, scope of work, SOW.
Scope of work, yeah.
And, it's
Hey,
like,
brother,
so we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And it worked out, thankfully, but it kicked me in the butt on some future ones because I, was like, hey, dude, we killed it. There was a little, there's some communication issues.
Yeah. And that's why it's so crucial to have it written down. And I even like to videotape it now so that, because sometimes even written down, like I can show it, but it's like, well, what did you mean by that? Well, we did the walkthrough and we verbally talked about it and agreed to it,
Yeah. I just had a bathroom done and he sent me over the invoice, and it was like $5,500. And I was like, hey, this scope of work says $4,000. And there wasn't any surprises. There wasn't anything additional that was done. And he was like, yeah, sorry, you're right. I was like, okay, here's $4,000. That's
don't do it again. Yeah.
Yeah. But I got whacked because I was like, we made $60K.
Yeah.
And I was like, sweet, this system sort of works well. Yeah. And then I hit deal 2 and 3 and whoa, man,
same contractor?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think 3 months into one of those, when a contractor stops seeing profit in a project, they lose motivation, just like anybody would. But the frustrating thing was that he was such a bad paperwork business type guy. He was gifted with his hands, but
like many. And that's something that I've learned. It's like different mindsets, really good with hands, different when it comes down to paperwork, organization, certain things like that,
Yeah. And because he was the only person I had experience with, I was like, okay, I guess I got to work with this. And I desperately asked him so many times. I'm like, please send me the change order. I know you're working more than what's in our agreed upon work. They open up the walls and literally it was like paper, the wood behind the drywall, termite infested house. And, this is I'm getting all these Home Depot calls for lumber. So I know I'm paying for lumber and I'm like, well, where's the bill for the labor?
Yeah.
And he just never sent it. And then his workers lost motivation because he wasn't paying them. And then eventually it was 3 weeks of nobody showing up on the job. And I just texted him one night. I was like, hey, just call off your workers. You're off the job. You're done. And
it's a tough call, isn't it? It's a tough call. I've been in that situation and I've given many times and chances. Because you want to make it a win-win. And, if I agree to something in the beginning, I want to see you get it done and finish it. But if it's not working out, costing more time, costing more money, it can be very frustrating and you got to make that call.
Yeah. Even when you switch contractors, when you bring another contractor in to finish another's work, it's literally double.
Yeah. They hate it. Yeah.
Because they're like, dude, we don't know what they did.
Yeah.
And so I knew that. And I had to weigh the risk of the amount of stress that it was causing me because I'm a deal hunter. I want to find more projects to do, more deals to get. Yeah. And this is just literally sucking all my attention. And so that, even though the budget literally went from 60 to 120, I was like, that is worth it to me because
peace of mind.
Yeah. And
if the numbers still work out looking at it, then it's like, all right. Let's just, I want to go back to what I enjoy doing and what I'm good at, getting these deals and let them do their thing.
Yeah. Well, on that one, I actually did lose money, but I'm chipper. I'm doing okay. I'm fine. Mentally, emotionally, I recovered from that, but it was so worth it to me to get out of that toxic situation.
Sure.
And I think I know, again, starting off in wholesaling, I knew so many investors, they would lose money and they're like, screw this business.
Yeah.
I'm never
giving up.
People don't like feeling like they got screwed over
or they lost or
it's kind of that extreme ownership thing, because my wife, our friends who knew the situation, they were like, screw that guy. He's the worst, blah, blah, blah. He screwed you over. And I was like, well, guess who hired him?
I'm so proud of you for like looking in the mirror and standing up. Like that's a true man right there of like just acknowledging like shit rolls downhill, but guess who's at the top, you know?
Yeah.
And who's the one that ended up just ownership behind it. Yes, that person sucked, but you know, there's a lot of learning lessons behind it. And then that's where you won't make certain mistakes again in the future, which is awesome.
Yeah. And so thankfully I interviewed like 6 different contractors
Yeah.
and really just asked them like the questions of like everything that went wrong, and not like detailing out the situation, but I'm like, how do you handle your business? You know, send me a sample scope of work, send me a bid. And so then I was able to bring like 3 or 4 contractors onto my roster of people that I could work with and try projects out with. And that has really, like, when you get screwed over and you like accept responsibility for that, you're like, okay, well, I am not going to let this happen, you know, to that extent ever again. Yeah. And so my conversations with contractors now are very straightforward.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's the piece I think that a lot of people have. Well, I say, you know, people who understand how to find deals and then find, you know, raise money.
Yep.
There's that third piece, the contractor. And it's like when you can master all 3, you can really, really do anything.
Yeah. Real estate can be extremely simplified and very easy if you can master those 3 things. You know, it basically sells itself. If you can find a good deal at a good number, fund it, and then be able to complete the rehab without that many issues. And something that I've learned over the years is that when it comes down to a rehab, I've never been through a rehab that there wasn't something unexpected that came up that was like, and it could be something simple, something small, something gigantic, you know, but every single one, there's always, like, we got plan A, but it jumps into plan C, D, you know, Z really damn quick with real estate.
Yeah. Yeah. So
it's
I always build in a contingency now. So I, you know, any rehab budget that I have, it's like, okay, we're adding 10% to that. And it helps us absorb any, you know, issues. And then, you know, if there's still some left, it's like, okay, sweet. You know, like, should we pocket that, or should we add something maybe a little more special to it that will help us get a greater return? And one thing too that helped me, that I think a lot of people miss, like when they're getting into real estate, is like the value of even working under somebody. You know, I had a company that I worked with, and I was able to just learn under them for 2 straight years. You know, I did 30 deals with them, and that was priceless for me.
Yeah, that's so priceless. Yep.
Because it trained me, you know, with less risk, you know, because I was playing with someone else's money.
Yep.
Just to be able to analyze. I mean, I analyzed probably 50 properties a week, and just getting that muscle down. And then, so, you know, when I went on my own, that part was easier for me. And then all I had to do to like raise money really was just tell people what I was doing, you know, and they're like, oh, you're doing this on your own? Like, heck yeah. How do I get involved?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, wire this money here on this now.
Yeah.
But it is pretty simple, you know.
It is.
We're just going to, you know, wrap your money up on this property and secure it to that. And, you know, you're going to get a return at the end.
It's so good. Yeah. And like you said, you know, learning from somebody else kind of on their dime, experiencing it, and it really builds up the confidence because you're getting educated. You know, once you get enough education, you feel more confident moving into it. So when you do it on your own, it's a lot more, you know, seamless without any of the struggles in between. And I'm sure you went through struggles. Like, don't get me wrong. There's only so much that you can learn in books, podcasts, YouTube, and then also like being very close, working underneath it. Once you actually do it hands-on, you're going to make little mistakes. It's natural, but that still helps out so much. So I'm sure you're taking apprenticeships right now, right?
I will be. I mean, I'm training an acquisitions guy, so he kind of works for me. So it's not necessarily like an open apprenticeship, but that I definitely have a heart to help people and like help them learn like how to do it right. You know, because, you know, you try to do everything with integrity.
Yeah.
Do what you're saying. It's amazing how simple business is. It's like, if you just do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, you actually followed through on this.
You didn't ghost me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You are a decent human being. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not that difficult, because there's always problems that occur. A lot of people run away from the problems and try not to deal with it. And that's never going to be a win-win. So just adjusting. I want to talk to you a good amount I want to touch on like funding and all that fun stuff. But right now, I kind of want to cover more on the contractor side, how you hire, any processes and stuff, because it sounds like you learned a lot. And just like you said, if you can get the acquisition down, if you can get the funding down, then it's really that third key part, which is the construction side that so many investors, myself 100% included, have made the mistakes over and over. And it's almost because the contractors are a completely different mindset of individuals. It's like very good with hands, less on other things and so the communication really needs to be up to par to be able to get the best end results. So how do you hire? Let's start off with that. Are you getting referrals or searching?
Yeah, I would say pretty much everyone that I use and know are referrals somehow, whether it's just someone tagged a contractor in their Instagram story.
Sure.
And then I just start following them. Yep. Kind of notice and put the pieces together of like, okay, they work with this investor, or that person. And I won't even necessarily reach out to them directly right away. I'll just ask the other person like, hey, how has it been working with this guy?
Yeah.
And kind of getting that feedback. And then, just starting conversation of like, hey, can I walk through one of your projects, or can you come walk through one of my projects? So we can kind of get used to how the other person thinks.
Works. Yeah.
Because, there's some like retail contractors who are more, they're more like the salesman. They're like, we can do this, we can take down that wall, we can do all this. And, just imagine all the things you can do. But when you're investing, you're looking for a specific, like, you need to get the return, of like where you have it under contract at. And so what I really appreciate is someone who can fill in the gaps. So you can either have like a blank canvas contractor. It's like, do this, or, like someone who just sells you the dream. But I noticed for me, because I'm not a super handy person, I'm not a good, I couldn't build a house on my own.
Me neither.
Yeah, I don't know how to, but I understand things, and I understand, I can grasp concepts pretty quickly. And so what I appreciate is someone who can give me an answer of like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Do you think that's the most efficient way to get somewhere to this result? Or is there a better way, where we can spend less money to get the same result? And that's the kind of person that I've noticed I've been kind of gravitated more towards now, so that it's like, okay, I have a designer, we kind of put together a whole floor plan and, get all the finishes, but then the meat of the stuff, we're kind of working together, and then I'll put that down on the SOW. So and then, come into payments, with contractor law, it's
It's good.
Giving money up front. It's kind of a delicate balance, with when you're doing a flip, because it's we're getting this done as fast as possible. And so it's we have an agreement in place in our contract and how we're going to split up payments. And it's never a third, it's never a half. It's okay, we're giving you a week just to kind of get started. And I typically will buy all the materials on my credit card, just, to make sure that I'm also keeping track of okay, when are we buying certain things? Because if I haven't gotten a call to pay for the kitchen, I know, okay, hey, I haven't gotten a call for the kitchen. This is supposed to happen week 6.
Yeah.
What's going on? So some contractors, I've done it to where it's, let's say, the contract is, I'm just going to be easy on myself for math. Let's say it's 50 grand.
Sure. And
it's a 5-week project. Sometimes we'll just split it up. Okay, 10 grand a week, boom, boom, boom. But some hurdles that I ran into with that is we get to the end of the 5 weeks, and I'm there's still this punch list, hey, you missed these different things.
It's a strong punch list, and then it costs more than that 10 grand, and then they're like, you know what? I'm good to bounce now,
Yeah. So this is going to iterate. I'm sure I'll learn something new in the next few months and years. But what right now I'm doing is because, I use hard money to purchase these. And so my renovation money is held, in a suspended account that I have to show proof that I've finished these phases.
Yes.
And then I get the money wired into my account, and then I can pay the contractors through that. So
and you don't want to spend time on Canva, like copy and pasting and try to make it look like it's done when it's really not.
Okay, I'm good friends with my lender, but I definitely have taken a picture from a corner.
Yeah. Hey, I hear you. When you need the money, you gotta keep it moving.
Oh man. And so just like getting them on the same page as me, be like, hey, listen, like I want to pay you.
Yeah.
But I get paid when it's done. And so, there's only so much money I can front. And so it kind of gets them on the same page.
I love playing that position because I do the same thing of, hey, I'm just the middleman. I'm the project manager. I got the investor is the hard money lending, and then the private money, lenders, they're the ones that are funding it all. I'm just making sure that it gets done, but I don't get any money until the work gets done. So I can't pay you out until then. And then you see how they actually start working because they buddy up with you in a different way.
Yeah. And that's been the best dynamic that I've had so far, but I still want them to invoice me by Wednesday.
Yeah.
And then, as long as that work's done, then they get paid Friday. So, thankfully the lender that I have is like super fast, which makes this current setup that I have work really well, because all I have to do is I upload the pictures on a Dropbox, send it to them, and then they guarantee 24 hours, but a lot of times the money is in my account in like 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
It's crazy how fast they are.
Who's the lender you use?
Talamar Financial. It's Brock Vandenberg.
Yep.
Their service is just so good. They're not the cheapest, but it's super high level service.
Yeah. They're good guys too. So it's good to work with good people. So it's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's how you're funding it. And then also for the contractors, you're only using referrals. You're guiding them, being the middleman, saying, hey, I get paid, or you can get paid once I get the work done. So you're not necessarily doing that like breakdown if it's 50K 5 weeks anymore, right? You're not doing the 10K a week.
I mean, I wouldn't be against that, but I would definitely make sure that the responsibilities of the punch list, were included in all that, and that we would have a timeline. And it's like, okay, this is what I'm paying 50 grand for.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to pay for you messing up.
Yeah.
Either. So
how I personally like to do it is, and everybody does it differently, having your detailed scope of work with a good chunk at the end still remaining, because in the beginning it's really like demo, preparing and getting stuff going. So yes, it costs some, but it's typically not as much until like you're in the middle and you're getting some big chunky stuff knocked out. And then always know there's always going to be a punch list. And if you don't leave enough still owed to them at the end, then it's like the nitty gritty stuff that nobody wants to do. And you can start seeing, people try to weasel out of. And also I really love to pay with credit cards for the simple fact that, hey, I could pay the whole damn thing right now, up front. If you want the whole thing up front, cool. But just know that if you don't stick to this agreement, then I'll be the first one to call the credit card company and let them know. And then they'll be reaching out to you, taking it back out of your account, or, hearing your side of the story. And if we have this detailed scope of work and also before and after pictures, it's going to be hard to break that, So
yeah,
it's a tough call though.
Yeah, I definitely want to get into understanding that. So gonna watch those videos.
Yeah. For the Council Elite, baby.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, I love it. So what do you see like the next couple years look like for you? I know nobody has that like crystal ball on the market and stuff like that, but would love to hear your thoughts on that. And then also just like where do you see yourself taking the company?
So like the market in general, kind of?
Yeah. Like, are you fearful of the market and, anything in the future?
I mean, I think it's okay to like feel weird, because
Weird times, right? It's different times to say
yeah,
the least.
there's so many different factors at play. Even though the last crash was 13 years ago, we still kind of have that recency bias towards that of like, oh, there was rampant appreciation in '05, '06, '07. And, we see that now where we have these huge price increases, but the factors back then were there was still an oversupply of housing. I think, even in '05, '06, '07, the average month's supply of inventory was like 7 or something like that.
Not
And
now.
so there's 0.9 months supply that we have in San Diego. And, there was just really bad loans happening then. And
all
so,
adjustable. Yeah.
Yeah. And, so people were like, well, I don't care if there's 20 houses in this neighborhood on the market. Like, I'll just pick one. I don't care what I pay. I just said I made this much money and
I'll refi in another 6 months. Yeah.
yeah. So, thankfully there was a lot of financial reform, to make lending. That's a really good thing. There's good loans being
pain in the ass
put
to
out
get
there.
a loan now if you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah, it really is. And so, I think what a lot of people even miss, like there's obviously low supply makes sense, but people forget that 40% of the money supply was printed in the last 16, 17 months. Like that. So, if you purely only think about that and speculate around that, it's like, I think what have we had like 20% appreciation or something like that?
Yeah.
But it's like, well, we could technically go another 20%. There's just so much money in the system that wasn't there before. And so, you have a lot of motivation to go from, liquid cash to like, this dollar is going down. So I want to go into fixed assets, which makes real estate really attractive.
Yeah.
And I think, the thing that holds the biggest power is the interest rates right now, because money is still so cheap to borrow.
So cheap.
And, you see the graphs of the 10-year treasury note. It's like super kind of little volatile right now, but you have these factors of like, okay, if you have like, political stances, but you're just purely looking at it from an economic point of view, you have to like remove all that. It's like, okay, well, you have all this vaccine drama going on right now, and, it's causing people to be let go, which is bad for the employment sector, which if the economy and, employment goes down, they're going to keep interest rates down, because they still want to stimulate the economy, but if things are going well, if people, the jobs keep getting added, there's optimism. They're like, okay, let's keep this inflation down. But
because it's out the roof right now. So yeah.
I think also like, just like why we would want to buy assets now is like we're buying assets, with 2021 dollars.
Yeah.
But we're locking in 30-year debt. And so we get to pay, in 2040.
Yeah.
Like we're going to have way more dollars because they're worth less, but we get to pay the same payment, off of 2021 or 2020, like money, because that payment was locked in. And so I think like 30-year debt is so powerful right now. Yeah.
Trying to get as much of it as you can, right?
Yeah, and you follow like the big money too. Follow Zillow, you follow Open Door, Blackstone, tons of hedge funds. Like they're still really bullish.
Yes.
And, so it's like, yeah, sure, you don't just necessarily do what other people are doing, but it's like, well, these people have a lot more commas in their bank account than me. And they're just buying. And so I actually sold a deal to Open Door.
Wow.
It was crazy how much they paid for it.
Yeah.
For me, a more or less little investor right now, it's, making, I think we made 70 in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like
it's crazy to think about though. It's like like, just like you were mentioning, like follow the people that have the billions, and mega millions that are constantly in the same industry doing, they're not letting up. They're very bullish and there's power behind that. I think locking up the 30-year fixes, like the fourplex that you know of in North Park, that one,
Yeah.
we have locked up at 2.95%. It's like,
oh my God.
a fourplex. So it's just mind blowing of how much you can lock these in for and take advantage of it while you can, because who knows how long this will last. But yeah, I love it. It's a great time right now to pick up real estate for sure. And with that being said, there's so many other people, I feel like, because of the market the last year or so, that the average person will actually stay out of it because they're fearful and they're scared, which the supply and demand is still there. But I almost feel like there's more opportunities for people like you and me that are actively in there just for that simple fact. It's like, I'm not scared to go after this deal when all these other people might be. So it's some weird times for sure.
Yeah. I mean, another dynamic that stays pretty consistent, like if there is a market dip, is like in prices, is that rental prices don't typically take a hit. Also like, yeah. And so that's like, well, okay, my exit strategy would just change.
Yeah.
Obviously I'm doing flipping right now as a way to accelerate capital, but, I'm going to need to be buying rentals, to offset that income, because I want to, be able to have more depreciate, things that I can depreciate against all the profit I'm making from flips.
I love it. It's so good. Jonny, man, it's always a blessing to be able to talk real estate with you and just shoot it with you. So I appreciate all the knowledge and experience and just really excited to see like where you're going to be in the next few years with what real estate is doing for you and your family. And just your heart is in such a good place that I know you're going to impact so many more people's lives, which is awesome. So how can people actually get a hold of you and connect more with you?
I'd say the platform that I'm most active on is Instagram. It's just Jonny E. Phillips. My first name doesn't have an H in it. So Jonny E. Phillips on Instagram. I post a lot of funny stuff and show off the different houses that I'm doing. So, and obviously I post a lot of pictures of my family too. So kind of the main things that are important to me right now.
Yep. I love it. Very true.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, I appreciate it, brother. You guys definitely want to reach out to Jonny and network with him. He's got amazing resources and really just on track to doing some really big things. So super excited to have him just as a friend and on the podcast with you guys, and also a part of Credit Counsel Elite. If you guys want to connect with me, you can always do so on Instagram. It's Brandon Elliott Investments. Otherwise, facebook.com/Brandon Elliott Investor. If you're looking for credit repair done for you services, then you can check out creditrepairmobile.com. Otherwise, if you are looking to join our mastermind group and see if you qualify, then we're all geared towards a 4-step process. So educate, fix, build, and leverage, understanding how the banks and lenders are judging you, how to fix your credit quickly, how to be able to boost up your score, get it to the 800 range, and then do a mass apply, get several 6 figures in funding, even 7 figures in funding. And then afterwards, being able to put it to work, purchase real estate like we have, secure yourself, do hard money lending, e-commerce, automation stores, you name it, fund your own business. You can always check out creditcounselelite.com. That's creditcounselelite.com and see if you qualify. With that being said, Jonny, appreciate you so much, brother. And to all the listeners out there, make sure you leave a 5-star review. Appreciate all the love and support. Hit that subscribe button so you get the newest notification every single Monday, and we will see you on the next one. God bless, guys. Peace.
This has been another episode of Ready, Set, Go Real Estate Investing Podcast, brought to you by Brandon Elliott. For more information, please visit BrandonElliottInvestments.com. Also, please don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment below. Thanks again for joining.